Nestled deep within the folds of the Appalachian Mountains, there are places even maps hesitate to chart. These hills, with their fog-draped valleys and whispering pine forests, hold secrets older than the oldest cabins clinging to their slopes. Generations of locals speak in hushed tones about things that walk at night, of howls that don't come from any known creature, and shadows that move even when there's no light. In this quiet, hauntingly beautiful region, 5 stories have lingered over time, told around fireplaces and passed from one wary soul to the next. Eli Whitmore was a retired park ranger who'd spent nearly 30 years walking trails in the western part of North Carolina. One summer evening in 2013, he decided to take a nostalgic trip back to an old fire tower he used to man, located in a rarely used part of Pisgah National Forest. The tower stood like a sentinel on a ridge, peering out over a forest that never seemed fully still. Eli was the type of man who never frightened easily, but that night he felt something shift around in the moment he stepped off the gravel road. There was an odd stillness, no birdsong, no chirping of insects, only the crunch of his boots on the underbrush. As he approached the base of the fire tower, he noticed that the padlock was broken. That didn't sit right with him. He climbed up anyway, the metal stairs groaning beneath him. The view from the top was as majestic as he remembered, but the moment he set foot in the lookout cabin, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Carved into the wooden walls were names, dozens of them, none familiar to him, but each accompanied by a date. The most recent was just a week before. That wouldn't have been too strange, except that the final name was Eli Whitmore, followed by the very date he was standing there. Not long after that, Eli vanished. Authorities searched the ridge, the tower, even used dogs, but no trace was found. Locals say the fire tower still stands, and the list of names continues to grow. Some hikers report hearing footsteps on the stairs when the tower appears abandoned. Others claim to see a shadowy figure at the top, staring out across the ridgeline, watching. In Virginia, near the small town of Pound, a woman named Charlotte Reynolds inherited her grandfather's cabin deep in the woods. She hadn't planned on ever moving there. It was remote, hard to reach, and lacked basic utilities. But after a nasty divorce and job loss, Charlotte decided it was as good a place as any to regroup. Her grandfather, she'd heard, was a bit of an eccentric. He lived alone for nearly 50 years and rarely spoke to anyone in town. Locals whispered that he wasn't alone in those woods, that he'd built the cabin on cursed land. Charlotte brushed off the rumors until one morning she woke to find claw marks on the inside of her bedroom window. They weren't the kind an animal would leave. These were long, deliberate, and deep, as though someone or something had tried to reach in. The occurrences escalated. Doors slammed at night. She heard breathing outside her window. One night, she awoke to see a tall, thin silhouette standing just beyond the tree line, unmoving and silent. The next morning, she found handprints made of ash on her front porch. Charlotte packed her things and left that same day. She later learned from an old journal of her grandfather's they believed a creature from Cherokee legend lived in those woods, a raven walker, a shapeshifter that mimics human voices and appears only to those who ignore the forest's unspoken rules. She never went back, and neither has anyone else. Then there's the story of Jared Thompson, a college student from Kentucky, who joined a research group in the summer of 2017 to study cave systems in the Appalachian Range. The team planned to document an unmapped section of caves deep beneath Pine Mountain. Jared, along with 2 graduate students, entered the mouth of the cave one cloudy morning and descended for hours, recording every twist and fork. About 3 miles in, they stumbled upon a chamber unlike any they'd seen before. The air turned cold and damp, and the rock formations twisted into unnatural, almost sculptural shapes, as though molded by something sentient. They noticed strange symbols etched into walls, and then their flashlights began to flicker. The graduate students decided to turn back, but Jared, always curious, stayed behind for just a few minutes longer. He never emerged. Search and rescue teams scoured the cave system for weeks. Eventually, they found one of the graduate students' helmets, cracked in half, lying next to a camera with a single photo on it, an image of Jared standing at the mouth of the strange chamber, staring at the wall. Behind him, faint but unmistakable, was the outline of a face, pale, eyeless, and watching. Locals now refer to the chamber as the Whispering Hollow. Spelunkers who attempt to reach it report disembodied voices echoing to the caverns, calling them by name even if they're alone. One rescuer quit his job after hearing his deceased brother's voice inside the cave. He refuses to go near Pine Mountain ever again. In the hills of West Virginia, an old mining town named Greywater holds a story few dare to tell. The town had been abandoned since the 1960s after a mine collapse buried nearly 20 workers alive. The official cause was structural failure, but survivors whispered of something else. Something in the dark that caused the tunnel to fall. Decades later, in 2009, a group of urban explorers entered the ruins of Greywater, hoping to capture footage of the decaying town for a documentary. They were skeptical of the ghost stories, thinking them mere folklore. Their footage was recovered from a drone, found crashed near the mine entrance. It shows the group walking through the overgrown streets, joking and filming. But near the end, the video becomes erratic, glitching, colors shifting. There's a moment when one of the explorers turns to the camera and his face changes. His eyes go completely black, and his mouth stretches far wider than humanly possible. He speaks, but not in English, not even in any recognizable language. Then the video cuts to static. The group was never found. Search teams turned up nothing, but they did find fresh footprints leading into the mine, none coming back out. To this day, no one knows what they encountered, but old-timers in the region say the mine woke something up and that it never went back to sleep. Finally, there's the unsettling account of Daniel Morris, a travel blogger who visited a little-known village in eastern Tennessee called Timber Hollow in 2021. It wasn't on any GPS, but he'd heard of it from a hiker he met on the Appalachian Trail. Intrigued by the idea of a forgotten town, Daniel made his way off-grid. He found Timber Hollow at the end of a narrow gravel path, nestled in a misty valley. The place was strange, perfectly preserved but devoid of people. Shops still had goods on shelves. A church bell hung silent. Homes looked recently lived in, but no voices echoed in the air. He spent one night there. In his journal, later found by another hiker weeks after Daniel's disappearance, he wrote about how the town seemed to breathe, how the trees outside whispered his name, and how the air itself seemed to grow heavier as the sun went down. His final entry read, "They're here. I was never supposed to see this place. The hollow isn't abandoned. It's waiting." The hiker who found the journal reported Timber Hollow to authorities, but when they arrived, they found nothing.